Talking about Longhorns, Texas wins 17-7. Maybe a little bit more dangerous than it needed to be, but I tell you what, that was as one-sided a 10-point win as you will ever see. Texas 17-7 over Texas A&M, and a renewal of a rivalry, guys. 4,755 days coming, and guess what? Aggie's going to have to wait another 365 before they get a taste of the Longhorns, because Texas now 14 years in running, they've got scoreboard. I'm Bobby Burton, joined by Brian Robison, former Longhorn, NFL veteran, also Rod Babers, former Longhorn NFL vet. We're here to break down the game for you. Guys, y'all played in this rivalry. I know I can tell you guys are probably grinning because you're both defensive players. Brian, I'll start with you, buddy. What'd you think of that defensive performance tonight?
Man, I thought the defense played lights out. You can't say enough of just the plays in critical situations those guys were able to make, whether it be fourth downs, whether it be getting a negative, play on first and second downs when they really needed to slow the A&M offense up. And just overall, the defense.
Brian, I think you're breaking up a little bit. I'm going to put Rod. Rod, what did you think of that defense, buddy?
Yeah, I think honestly, it's the best defense in the country, in my opinion. And that's why I know the win for some is upsetting, because people believe that Texas should have blown out A&M, and they probably should have. But this a 17-7 win for a defensive-led team, to me, is still impressive, because the defense, essentially, that's a shutout. I mean, you got to pick six to the house, but you got a shutout against A&M on the road in Aggieland from your defense, and they pretty much didn't allow the Aggies much life at all, or any hope at all. I think, honestly, that's why, and I know me and Jerry talked about it on In-Game Live Watch, I think that's why a big part of why Elko went for it on that fourth down. The argument had been made, hey, kick the field goal, you still have life. But I think he was like, with blood life, I haven't gotten down. You asking me to drive downfield on the Texas defense, which I haven't done basically since the first drive of the game was the last time I was ready to drive down the field and get into the scoring territory against the Texas defense. What are the odds of me doing it outside of this, block punt that we just had? So I think that's why he did. Now, you could argue that's desperation, and that was a bad coaching decision. I agree with you on that, but I think it was more of a tip of the hat out of respect for the Texas defense, how dominant they have been.
They really were. They were good in pass coverage. Brian, I want to ask you about the pass rush and how they really hemmed in Marcel Reed. Clearly, Texas did not let him do his major thing. Hey, there's Derek Weisner, by the way. He is the uncle of Trey Weisner. Big hook 'em for Trey tonight. But Brian, a question for you real quick on that defensive front. They kind of owned the Aggies, hemmed him in. Then you had Vernon Broughton that may have just had his best game ever as a Longhorn. Newcomer Trey Moore gets the strip sack. Vernon gets the fumble recovery to end it. What did you think of the Texas defensive front?
Yeah, I thought they did a great job of keeping the Aggies off kilter. You didn't know if they were going to rush 4. You didn't know if they were going to rush 3. You didn't know if they were spying. You didn't know if they were blitzing. They did a really good job of just kind of giving A&M the whole gamut throughout the game, and just kind of varying and mixing things up, different looks. And I think when you look at Marcel Reed, he's had such success this year running against defenses that even himself, he didn't know if there was a spy waiting for him. He didn't know if the Texas defensive line was forcing him one way or the other, which that's what it looked like to me. If they were going to force him out of the pocket, they were going to force him in a direction that favored Texas versus allowing him to just kind of run around. So I thought the Texas defensive line did an amazing job of either forcing him, to the spy, whether that be Anthony Hill or any of those guys, but also, varying whether it was a 3-man rush or a 4-man rush and keeping him inside the pocket where he had to kind of escape into the middle to some of those bigger bodies.
I tell you what, it was a tremendous performance for the Texas defense. There's just no doubt about it. A&M did not score an offensive touchdown, didn't score any offensive points. I think they were 0 for 3 on fourth downs. Texas just tremendous defensive play all game long. Andrew Makuba had a great game. I thought he played really well, made some key hits and stops, but it was a team effort. And guys, that's one of the things that y'all have talked about in the post games we've joined together. Y'all talk about how they're playing as a team. It's like they all know what each other's doing, and they've got a plan for it going in. I'll tell you who else played like a team, and I want to ask y'all about this next. That Texas offensive line. Woo! They sucked the life out of the Aggies in the third and fourth quarter, ran the ball when they had to. Yes, Texas made some mistakes. Quinn Ewers had an ill-advised interception or a tip ball interception, then also the fumble late in the third quarter. But I'm telling you guys, this Texas offensive line, with the help of Trey Weisner, controlled this ball game almost from the second quarter on. Y'all, hats off to the offensive line. Y'all agree with that? Rob, what about you, bud?
Yep. No, there you go. Officially. The most dependable things on this team, gentlemen, are that Texas defense and now that offensive line and Trey Weisner. Those right now are the three things that you can count on that are consistent and reliable and that you can trust. And that happened in the Kentucky game, right? Remember everything that happened in the Kentucky. First of all, another bad third quarter. I don't know what's happening in third quarters right now with Texas. That was a disastrous third quarter, just like Kentucky. But Sark went back to what he could trust. And he knew he could trust that Texas defense, and then the Texas offensive line in the run game. So to me, the theme right now that's starting developing and the narrative that I think is starting to develop for me is that the offensive line may be maturing at the perfect time. We saw Kelvin Banks go down in this game. Your best player go down. Talk about adversity on the O-line, your anchor on your O-line. They put in a young Trevor Goolsby, and they still are able to impose their will on the A&M front. Guys, there are NFL players on that Aggie A&M defensive line. Brian can tell you about them, and NFL players. And Texas, I'm not saying that Texas was hurting them, but guys, they were coming off the field late in that game after Texas started running the rock and pounding the rock. I think, to me, they did the same thing against Kentucky when the fit hit the shan after the third quarter. They relied on their running game. They relied on Trey Weisner. They did it again. Trey Weisner, legendary stuff, brother. In the Texas A&M game on the road, when you run for 180, legendary, brother. Legendary, no doubt. Oh, man, ton of respect. But to me, those are the three things that can help you win a national title. You saddle up and you ride those three things: your defense, your O-line, and Trey Weisner. Who would have thought at the end of the season, game 12, the O-line and the defense leading the way. That's surprising enough. But then that Trey Weisner will be, to me, him and Gunnar Helm, probably the third most reliable things. And then Golden. And it's like, that's your top five. What's the most reliable things on this team? It's like
Ron's just going to keep adding, Brian.
Oh, yeah. No. But those are the five things that I was like, I can rely on those things. I feel like now in game 12, that no matter what situation is, those five things going to show up for me. And I know we'll talk about Quinn, and there are some other spectacular elements to this team. But who shows up every game for you in clutch time? I think those are you're right, I'm adding more, but those are my 3 to 5.
Brian, what was the Texas offensive line doing to A&M? Were they just moving them? Was Sark mixing up the run game really well? What did you see there?
I think when you look at it, there's a few things that you can take out of this ball game, right? I think it was a really good run scheme from the Texas offensive coaches. I think apparently they found out a deal where they needed a double team to move the guy out of the middle, and then they could create, that second level runs where you allowed Trey Weisner to get up to that second level, make a guy miss, something like that. The other thing I see, man, I don't know if I have seen Trey Weisner run as patient as he did tonight. You look at a lot of the runs that he had tonight, and they were Le'Veon Bell type runs, just getting behind the offensive lineman, waiting for the gap to open up, and then he hits it north and south. And that's what you want. And I'll tell you, when you have a back that's running like that, that means you have a back that has 100% absolute trust in his offensive line that the hole will open up. You've just got to give your men up front time to work. All right. Here's the third thing I'm going to say. You get a guy like Goolsby that came in and played the way he did tonight against the defensive line front, the way that A&M has. I mean, you've got Turner on that front. You've got Scarton on that front. You've got some guys, like Rod said, you've got some NFL caliber guys on that defensive line. And I'll tell you what you saw tonight. You saw a lack of depth for Texas A&M's defensive line. They had injured guys going down. They really didn't know who to send in there, send out. But it was one of those games where we have seen multiple times this year where the Texas offensive line says, hey, we're going to run it down your throat. There's nothing you can do about it. You can do everything you want to try to do to stop it. And you're just going to have to eat it. And that's what they did. When you give the ball to a guy 33 times,
crazy.
That's telling somebody, hey, you can't stop it. Good luck.
I love it, Brian. When you talk that way, that's the way the Longhorn fans want to hear. Real quick, I want to say thank you to our sponsors before we go any further. That is Flight, the next generation of light beer with only 95 calories. It's an upscale light beer designed to elevate the customer experience with more taste and just 4.2 carbs. Flight is an easy-to-drink beer with a crisp taste. Try Flight from Yingling. Thanks to the fine folks at Flight and our friends at Faust Distributing, guys. I tell you what, let's before we go to, and we got a bunch of questions coming in and super chats, and I want to get to that, but let's first talk about this. Quinn Ewers' performance. All week, is Quinn going to be able to play? Is Quinn going to be able to play? Well, look, Texas went up and had a really excellent first half. No doubt. 17-0. Rod talks about this all the time. Sark scores in bunches when he's got you on the ropes a little bit. These were more deliberate drives, I think, Rod, customary.
Yeah. Agreed.
Sark was moving the ball consistently on all three drives. What did y'all – part of that was Quinn Ewers. Part of that was the run game. What did y'all think of Ewers' performance today? Because I think he's going to get an A+ in the first half and maybe you turn the ball over, buddy, in the second half. Rod, what do you think, man?
Yeah, a tale of two halves, as you said, with Quinn. And I thought in the first half he was approaching looking like Michigan Quinn at some points. I mean, it was he was avoiding pressure. He was doing a great job extending the play we needed to, getting outside the pocket, making plays. Even completed that deep one to Matthew Golden under some pressure. I thought he looked fantastic in the first half. And then in the second half, even though the pick six was a deflected pass, it was still a poor decision. That guy was not open. I don't know. I don't think it would have been a pick if it wasn't deflected, but still a poor decision in the red zone. You know, you can't afford those. That is obviously a crucial area in terms of your football, situational football. And then the fumble, of course, also. So he started to melt down, I think, in the third, and then Sark did what he did when the offense started to melt down in the Kentucky game. And you brought this up, Bobby, last week in the Baylor game in 2022. Remember, there was a similar meltdown. You had a fumble, and then I think early in the fourth, you had that fumble return for a touchdown, and then Sark ran it 21 straight plays. And so we're starting to see Sark's default. He's like, know what? I'm going to eliminate any risk. I'm going to eliminate all the possibility for the margin for error, and we're just going to run the football. And they can rely on their like Brian said, you can rely right now on your running game, even when everybody in the building knows that you're going to run the football, like in the Kentucky game and like in this game, even when you're on the road, run game traveled for you, and you were able to impose your will with the run game. To me, that's something new. We haven't seen that from this team this season. That's a maturity thing. Now, that's the O-line maturing. That's Trey Weisner now finding his groove and his confidence. That's new, and that's scary because it's if the passing game and Quinn ever get back to their consistency where you can get first half Quinn, Michigan Quinn the entire game, and then that opens up the entire passing game with now this matured running game and the elite defense. Oh, it's done. It's over. That's all she wrote. But we don't know if we're gonna get all those elements to find that continuity to get the right time. Right now, you got the running game and you got the defense and the passing game with Quinn. Hey, it's good. When it's good, it's good. But it's like one of those bad relationships. When it's bad, it's bad. When it's good, it's good. But when it's bad, it's bad, man. It's like,
in the first quarter, he had 3 completions for negative yardage. A&M was sitting on those short screens and outside screens. Brian, what did you think of Quinn Ewers, the quarterback on Saturday night? I've got to be honest. I mean, we're sitting here 11-1. And people want to talk about the negative. There's some positive there. 17 of 28, 218. Yes, he had the interception, but he threw a couple of really nice balls. That one to Matthew Golden down the sideline was perfect. Another route to Ryan Wingo, really good. What did you think of Quinn's performance, especially given we were worried about going in his ankle? What do you think?
Yeah, dude, I mean, here's the deal, man. Like, I think Quinn Ewers gets a lot of negativity based solely upon being the quarterback of the University of Texas. I related a little bit to Dak Prescott being Dallas Cowboys quarterback, right? You get a lot of negativity. The problem you have is you have these flashes in the pan, right? And most people talk about flashes in the pan being positive things. Well, with Quinn, it's the negative things, right? You see the flashes in the pan where it's like, what are you thinking? What are you doing, right? And so, like, you have to know, like, in a situation where they are going to blitz, right? Right, Rod? You knew the blitz was coming. Like, I told my wife, I said, they're about to send the blitz at him. Like, that's what they've had success with. You knew it was coming, and you knew he was trying to get the ball out. But I'm like you, Rod. Like, you know that route is there, and you can see immediately that ball, that is not an open receiver, okay? So, like, in your mind, you should be thinking, okay, if the blitz is coming, the guy's not open, I got to get the ball out of bounds. Right? Just throw it away. And he didn't do it. He tried to put it in there. Like, I'd love to say that he was trying to throw the ball away, but that ball was heading right in the direction. And honestly, like, I'm not sure that it wouldn't have been a pick six either way. I mean, if the guy makes a great play on the ball, I mean, it's going back the other way regardless. You know, the fumble, yeah, you know, you wish he would have tucked the ball away a little bit more, but that's one of those deals where you look at it and you're like, okay, was that bad on Quinn's part, or was that just a good play by the A&M defender punching the ball out from behind? You know, it's one of those things where it's give or take. But as the quarterback of the University of Texas, you've got to understand the situation. You've got to know that, hey, like, listen, I've got to put the ball away. I've got to get down on the ground, especially having a hurt ankle. Like, I'm not going to be running away from nobody. So, like, I got to get down. I got to give ourselves another down to fight, right? You had an opportunity there to really be able to put the ball game away. You had an opportunity really to go up possibly 24-0, but at least 20-0. Then you had another opportunity to go if you compile that, possibly go up 31-0, if not 23-0. And that's a totally different dynamic than a 17-7 ball game, because now you've let a team who has enough talent to win a ball game back in there, and they just kind of hung around. And it goes back to what you said, Rod. If the defense didn't play the way they did tonight, make the stops they needed to play, make the negative plays that they needed to have, we're looking at possibly a different ball game tonight. But I'm like Bobby, this was a runaway ball game. Whether you want, like, no matter what the score says, it was a runaway ball game, because this is what you got to have when you want a national championship contending football team. You got to have the defense pick the offense up when they're down. You got to have the offense that picks the defense up when they're down. And then you got to have special teams. If you can get the special teams into that mix as well, and you start playing complementary football, you start pinning, you know, really and truly the field position early in the game was not good for Texas. But they found a way to, like, get the job done. If you can flip that field position, like, man, that's when you really start doing some special things as a football team.
All right, you're listening to the Postgame Show on Texas Football. I'm Bobby Burton, joined by Brian Robison and Rod Babers. We're going to get to y'all's questions and comments. We're going to give out game balls on offense and defense as well. But let's get to y'all's comments for first off, because we got a slew of them coming in. This is for Bobby and Blake, the Mayo Fund. Eat up. Brian, you may want to join in this. One of our friends that appears on this channel, Jerry Hamilton, likes corn dogs with mayo at the state fair.
Disgusting.
Not me. But Blake may have to do that on Monday at our morning show and eat a little corn dog with mayo. William Niche, awesome win. Thank God for our defense and Trey Weisner. Thoughts on the rematch next weekend? Hey, why don't you guys give us a minute apiece on what you think of a rematch with Georgia? Rod or Brian, whoever wants to go first.
Yeah, I think you're going to get more of a second half ball game like you had at Texas. I think the first half was a little bit of an anomaly. You know, Georgia gave them some looks, and since then the offensive line has kind of shored up. You look at tonight, you know, for example, Texas A&M kind of gave them a few of the looks that Georgia gave them, and they were able to kind of figure things out as the game went along. You know, they had that one where they were sending guys inside and the guy was wrapping, and they had a couple problems with that, but they ended up shoring that up a little bit. So I think the offensive line during the bye week was able to go in, kind of correct some things. So I really think, man, this is going to be just a hard-nosed football game next week in Atlanta that is really just going to be, honestly, it's going to be a football game I think you're going to want to sit down and watch.
I'll be there next week. Ryan, what about you? Quick thought on a rematch.
I think Brian's right about the offensive line. I think they're going to play much better. Does that run game travel versus Georgia? Right, on the road, neutral site. So we know the run game was great at home. The run game was great on the road at probably the most hostile environment Texas is going to see, in the last decade or so, right? And now at a neutral location against an elite defense with elite personnel, all right, NFL players at every level, and an elite coordinator and an elite mind like Kirby Smart. Can that run game now also be a factor? Because if it is, that's very different than what we saw in the first matchup, which was one of the worst run game performances we've seen from a Sark offense since he's been at Texas. And I think that could ultimately really change the dynamic. But then we can't have third quarter Quinn in the last couple of games. We can't have that third quarter. If you have a third quarter like you've had versus Kentucky and like versus A&M, you're going to lose that game. Now, you ain't got to have a great third. You ain't got to have a great third quarter, but you can have those kind of third quarters where you're essentially giving up points and having turnovers. You can't have that. And since you avoid that, they'll be okay.
A&M had 6 yards at one point in the third quarter, yet they scored 7 points in Texas. I mean, I get it. I will say this real quick. I don't think that's going to be while the ticket allotment may be even for Texas versus Georgia, it is in Atlanta.
Oh, yeah.
So we're likely to see a lot of Georgia fans there. I will be there. I know CJ will be there as well. We'll definitely have something for everybody to do down there. I've been talking to the Atlanta, Texas X's already, so we'll get something done. This from Mike Gosnell, guys. Mike put in a specific number, 45. That's got to get that $45 super chat for Big Vern. What a defensive effort by the Horns tonight. Other than Ewers' big errors, he was solid. Lots to clean up, but we're off to Atlanta. Love you all. Horns up, thumbs down. Look at Rod D. Hey, Vernon Broughton.
Thank you, Mike.
I thought, thank you, Mike. I thought seriously that if I would have chosen one of the defensive tackles to have a big game tonight, I would have picked Alfred Collins. What do y'all think about the Big Vernon stepping up like he did? That's got to be huge. Y'all played A&M. It's a big game for a senior to go out the right way, right? Against A&M. Y'all agree with that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it is what it is. It's huge for the Longhorns to do that. This one from It's 40-20 somewhere. Texas has now made more SEC championship games than the Aggies game balls for E-line, O-line, and Weisner.
Wow.
Guys, I don't know. I'm getting all kinds of texts to my personal phone right now. One of my funnier friends texted me this just now. I've got to share it because it is. He writes, interesting stat. Aggies have not scored an offensive point against Texas since 2011. So, there's that to consider as well. Let's talk a little about those game balls. What do y'all think? Offense, Brian, why don't you take the offense, then we'll talk a little bit about that, and then Rod, I'll give you a first shot at the defense. Brian, offensive game ball for you.
Listen, man, I mean, I know the easy deal here is Trey Weisner. I'm going to go with the offensive line. That offensive line gets game balls tonight. And I think Trey Weisner needs to be in that conversation as well. But, to me, it's too hard to just say Trey Weisner. You got to look at this offensive line for what they did. You lose your anchor in the offensive line, and a redshirt freshman comes in and just plays absolutely lights out against NFL talent caliber defensive linemen. They just played like men. I mean, they played like men amongst boys tonight, and you could tell they were out there to impose their will. And Trey Weisner was kind of like the last little, swing of the hammer, if you will, that knocked the nail in the coffin, because they just They couldn't get to him before 3, 4, 5 yards. And then when they did get to him, he was the one that was lowering the punishing blows. And I think at the end of the night, like A&M realized there was just nothing they could do to that run game. So for me, it's the offensive line and Trey Weisner.
Rod B, you agree with the offensive line and Trey Weisner? Those two, Texas rode the offensive line and they rode Trey Weisner to victory. Now, it wasn't always pretty, only scoring 17 points, but you agree with him?
No, he's right. I mean, how often losing Kelvin Banks, I think, proves that the offensive line in this game being able to impose their will in the running game. What they end up running for 240 overall?
Yeah, 248, I think.
And 180 of that, 186 of that is Trey Weisner. Man, that's a workhorse performance in back-to-back weeks by Trey Weisner on the road. There's no doubt. I mean, Brian's right about that. It's been extraordinary. I did not think they were capable of that. I'm going to be honest with you. I did not think the Texas offense was capable of being able to lean this heavily on the run game on the road against what I think are, some of the better front sevens and better D lines in the country in Kentucky and A&M. And this late in the season, for that to become what is looking like, I don't want to jinx it, a strength of the offense. Did not expect that to be the case. No, so he's right, man. That's unbelievable. That's how often have we seen somebody rush for 186 on the Aggies in Aggie land for the Longhorns? Somebody go do the research on that. I guarantee it ain't a lot of them. It don't happen often.
I'll probably an Auburn guy back when Kevin Sumlin was there. Auburn.
Well, no, I'm talking for Texas. Oh,
yeah. Never. I think it's.
I'm sure somebody's done it. I'm just talking about for us, man.
I think it's an all-time high. If I'm not mistaken.
Is it really?
The guy showed that.
It sounds like a lot. I don't know how often it happens, but for the Longhorns, we don't have it. It hasn't happened very often for us.
One of our guys will tell us that in the chat, or Matt can look that up for us. All right, defense, Rod. Come on now. I don't even know where you start. Is it Vernon?
Exactly. This is unfair. How am I going to pick one guy? I can go with Michael Taff. Taff Daddy balled out, got that beautiful pick at the beginning of the game, but he got a tackle for loss. He got a pass breakup. So Taff Daddy balled out. But I can also go with, look at the stat line for Vernon Broughton. Vernon Broughton had 2. You know what? It's probably going to be Vernon Broughton. He had 2 sacks, 2 tackles, 3 quarterback hurries. It's probably Vernon Broughton. I'll just go Vernon Broughton. It's him. 2 sacks. I'll give it to him. But I think a lot of guys did ball out, is my point. He wasn't the only one. There were several guys that I thought made, key plays. Trey Moore had a hell of a game, too. Where's Trey Moore's stat line? Look at him. He had 2 tackles for loss. He had a sack. He had, forced fumble. Yep. So Trey Moore. So, yes, I'll give it to Vernon Broughton. But I just want to, and I will get Brian's thoughts. I think you could give it to the defense if you want to as well, because there were probably 3 or 4 guys that I think had hell of a games versus the Aggies on the road.
Brian, what do you think about it? Vernon, entire defense, your thoughts?
I mean, listen, it would be easy to sit there and say that the entire defense, like what the defense did as a whole tonight, they should get a game ball. But in my opinion, it started with Vernon Broughton and it ends with Vernon Broughton. You talked about it, right? If there's one guy that you would have looked at, it would have been Alfred Collins. Well, that's fine. Hey, A&M probably thought that too. They said, hey, we got to take care of Alfred Collins. But guess what? You forgot about 45 over there that can make plays too. Okay? And so here's the deal. If they're going to forget about you, you make them pay. And I would say if you got 4 total tackles, 3 solo, 2 sacks, 2 TFLs, and 2 quarterback hurries, they ain't going to forget about you no more. I promise that, Big Daddy. So, in my opinion, Vernon Broughton gets the game ball tonight.
Yep. All right, we'll take that. I love that description. Good stuff, Rod. Good stuff, Rod, as well. Hey, here's a good one as well from Steve Cap. Only noise I'm hearing currently at Kyle Field, the eyes of Texas.
Yeah. Like that.
MP Houston, Ags just got 12th Manscaped. break out the 5.0, Jerry Hamilton. It's smooth sack summer in November. All right, Eric Mitchell, Trey Weisner on his way towards keeping Sark's 1,000-yard rushing streak alive. That should put him around 850. Dude is a dog. I want to ask y'all both this, and I think y'all said something that I thought was really interesting. Y'all both said that Texas found its running game kind of at mid-season almost. Like after Georgia, Texas decided to go make Trey Weisner the feature guy, right?
Yep.
Is that what's – I know that's not the only thing that's gone right with the running game of late, but has that been the key move? Because it at least from my standpoint, just a layperson watching the game, that's where I would come out on. Rod or Brian, y'all think that's been the key move, or has it been some adjustments in play calls from Sark too?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think it's a little bit of both. I think Sark's done a great job. I had a coach, Ray Horton, always told me, football and life are constant struggles deciding between what you want to be and what you need to be in order to survive. And I think the vision that Sark had for the offense initially was an offense that was going to be prolific and lead with the pass, especially after CJ Baxter went down. That we're going to lead with the passing game and look at all these great weapons we have with Matthew Golden and Bond, and then Gunnar Helm now and Bolden, and I mean it was just a prolific passing game in terms of all the weapons that you have. And I think as the season went on, the passing game, I think you led the way with it, but I don't think he totally trusted it at times because there was this risk factor involved. And as you saw the ascent of the defense, I think Sark realized, well, I don't have to take unnecessary risks with this offense. This defense is so damn good. We're going to score our points. And there are times when I will take risks within the game, but I don't have to do it for 4 quarters. I really can do it for like a quarter and a half, 2 quarters. We get up enough points. I ain't got to get up by 3 touchdowns. This defense, 2 touchdowns basically is a 3-4 touchdown lead with this defense. And you can't march down the field. So I think there's been an adjustment by him and a little compromise, and I love it. And I think he was surprised by it. We've all been surprised by it. Nobody thought it should be the best defense in the country. That's a hell of a turnaround. Nobody thought at this point Trey Weisner would be the bell cow running back at this point. Get out of here. Nobody.
He doesn't look like one.
No, he doesn't.
Rod, we talk about it all the time. I called like guys like him boutique backs, right? Where you throw swing passes to them. They get a little bit done. Now I'm thinking he's more Isaiah Pacheco than he is, that kind of inside runner that just is tough and gritty, and man, he plays hard. Brian, you think that the table turned with this Texas team when they found that running game with Trey Weisner overall for the whole season?
I think you look at 2 things. I think one is when you started the season, it was going to be very CJ Baxter oriented and pass happy, right? It was kind of like what Rod talked about. Like you got all these weapons on the edge, and then you've got a running back like CJ Baxter that can kind of do a little bit of everything. I think that was an adjustment period because you lose CJ Baxter, and then you think Jaden Blue is going to be the feature guy, right? Yeah. So now you've got this idea of how the offense is going to run with Jaden Blue. Well, then that didn't really pan out the way they wanted it to. So now you get Trey Weisner. So now you've got an issue here, or not an issue. You've got a blessing in disguise here, which is now you really know what Trey Weisner brings to the table. So it allows you to really dial in the play call. Okay. The second part of this is Texas has found their identity. They're going to be physical on defense, and they're going to be physical up front in the running game. We have seen that multiple games this year where when Texas gets a little bit of a lead and you think, well, they're just going to try to put it away in the pass game. No, they go straight to the run game. They go ground and pound, and they're like, good luck stopping us because we're going to just milk this clock, and there's nothing you can do about it. And I think that is part of it. I think part of it is play calling, understanding what you have now and how that works with Trey Weisner, with the guys up front. And also the identity that this football team has taken over. You tell me the last time that you've seen a Texas football team in quite some time that their identity was, we are going to out physical you in every way possible on both sides of the ball. I'll wait, because to me, it's been a while. It's been a while since that has happened. And you've had it on one side or the other, but you've never had it where it's like, this Texas defense is super physical. This Texas offensive line is super physical. Like, you know that on both sides of the ball, they're going to try to out physical.
They just played so well, both the offensive and defensive lines. We may have more coming from Mike Elko on something he said in the post-game press conference. We'll talk about that. Huge win. I'm going to go through some super chats here. Thank you, Ashley. Huge win. I didn't expect it. Sark and company deserves it. They absolutely do. He called a really good game plan, I thought, in the first half in particular. And then he just kept the ball away from him in the second half and didn't capitalize with some turnovers. This from Churchin. My son Ellis wants to see his name here and celebrate with the Quinn we leaned on tonight, Quinn Trey Weisner. That is so true.
Yeah.
Churchin, thank you so much, buddy. This from JJ. I called the RBs combining for 250 yards tonight. Didn't quite get there, but dang close. Weisner is a beast. Hook him. I want to say one thing real quick, if y'all don't mind. Jaden Blue did go out with an injury and did not return. I don't know anything more than that. We're going to go back to the super chats in just a second, but first, we're going to bring in the man, the myth, the legend, live from the Thunderdome there at Texas A&M Kyle Field. CJ, what'd you see tonight, buddy?
I saw a dominant defense, Bobby. I saw a dominant defense that I would say is the best in the country. And to come into Kyle Field, a hostile environment, and the renewal of one of the most intense emotional rivalries in all of the country, and to pitch a shutout, I don't know what else to say. But that defense is special. That defense can win a national championship. To me, it's all about what we can see from the offense. And I thought in that second quarter, that looked like a national championship winning team. The way that they were able to sustain drives, put points on the board, find the end zone, whether it be Arch, whether it be Quinn, that offense was rolling. Obviously, we saw some sputters in that third quarter and a little bit into the fourth, but the run game was really good for the third straight game, and that defense was absolutely lights out. It was a spectacular showing from Pete Kwiatkowski and Johnny Nansen and his crew.
Hey, I got to ask you, Steve Sarkisian in post-game press conference, other players, what did they have to say that caught your attention?
So we just heard from Steve Sarkisian. He kind of reiterated the same thing I just said. He said, quote, it felt like we dominated. And absolutely, I tend to agree, right? The defensive line, he singled out a few times as well. The edges being able to contain, and he singled out Alfred Collins and Vernon Broughton as well for their play. Of course, Broughton had the fumble recovery from Trey Moore to end the ball game. He said the 3 4th down stops were really the key for the defense. And the one on the goal line, I mean, that slammed the door shut on any type of a comeback right there for Texas A&M. That, again, week by week by week, that Texas defensive line has stood up and performed and developed, and it's been a heck of a ride so far.
You mentioned the presser for Steve Sarkisian. Here's the opening statement from Mike Elko in his. Listen up, guys. Quote, we got dominated on both lines of scrimmage. I have nothing else.
Wow. Okay.
End quote. Head football coach basically saying he got dominated. CJ, other things. What was the atmosphere like there at A&M tonight? We weren't there, obviously. You were. Was it as raucous and rowdy? It seemed like Texas took the sting out of the crowd in that second quarter.
Yeah, they absolutely did. I tell you what, on the way up to the press box, I didn't realize the press box here was basically on the moon, but it's pretty high up there. And underneath it, there's a lot of empty area, right? It overhangs basically where the students and sit all the way up, right? They told me that it swayed. And, of course, I'm sitting there, I'm like, this is an engineering school. Surely this is a sturdy – it swayed, Bobby. That first half, it was swaying. Kickoff on that run out, it was swaying. But to your point, with the way that Texas really kind of settled in on that first drive, right? They got the turnover on downs. They followed up with an incredible interception by Michael Taff, let me add. Followed it up with a touchdown. That was the momentum sealer. They doubled it up with another touchdown, and all of a sudden it was dead quiet. There was not any swaying. There was not any really cheers coming from other than folks in burnt orange. But, man, it was an awesome environment to start. And that pick six gave them a little bit life again. But I thought Texas did a great job of handling the environment and the momentum. And it surely paid off at the end of it.
All right, CAJ, we'll hear more from you tomorrow as well. Thank you so much.
I got one last thing.
You got one other thing? Go ahead.
One last thing. Kelvin Banks went down with an ankle. He was seen with a boot on his left ankle. Sarkisian said he does not know the severity. Of course, Texas will be headed to Atlanta next weekend. Also, Jaden Blue was dinged up. It was his left shoulder. No mention of Jaden Blue. I believe it was a bit of a stinger because I do think he was ready to go back in if his number was called again.
Oh, perfect. Great news. Thanks for that reporting, CJ. CJ live from Kyle Field. Thank you so much, buddy. You have a good one. Safe in there. Get your stories filed for On Texas Football as well. Brian Robison, Rod Babers, Bobby Burton joining you here tonight. We're talking about the Longhorns win over Texas A&M. Everybody's celebrating tonight. It's a good Thanksgiving weekend. This is Colin Davis. The announcer said we were trying to force Reed right, and he's right-handed. I thought we want to force him left because it's a more awkward throw. What do y'all make of that? I heard that comment too. Have you guys ever heard of that? Or maybe he just doesn't look back to his left to throw against his body over the middle as much? Did y'all hear that comment during the game?
I did hear that. Yeah, I think they said he was favoring his right, basically looking his right and scrambling right first. Yeah, could be something they saw on film, a tendency. I mean, Brian, you're a D lineman. What do you think of that?
I'm more so what I would look at, because of what we've talked about, when I was in the league and stuff like that, is I look at last week and I look at Marcel Reed, who kind of came up a little bit gimpy towards the end of that game against Auburn. Could it have been something that they picked out, like, hey, this guy, is a little bit gimpy on this leg or the other. We need to force him to where his cut leg is the injured leg, because you saw that tonight where that really kind of reared its head with him a little bit. So I almost wonder if it was one of those deals, or if it was something they found on film, like maybe he's just not as accurate or doesn't run as well to the right. Because if you look at it, like LSU, he really hurt them running to the left a lot. And I don't know if that was just an LSU thing or if that was a Marcel Reed thing, but I heard that as well. So I'm not real sure. I'll have to change hats and get a different thinking cap on.
Oh, wow.
There you go. I like it, Brian. Jackson Arnold's agent at Bama, at Ann Arbor, at Fayetteville, at College Station, 2-1 in Red River. Give Quinn his dang flowers. What QBs have had a better road resume? This makes 11 true road games in a row the Texas Longhorns have won. They did not lose a true road game last year. Haven't lost one this year. Is Quinn is he maybe even better on the road, you think? Because he doesn't have all the, stuff. I don't know. But certainly true statement there, Jackson Arnold's agent. Carlos Pena just dropped the narrative that our defense hasn't been tested yet. Every week, same song. Y'all agree with that? I mean, y'all been saying they're the best defense for a couple of weeks now. Can we now drop that song that, they haven't been tested? Does this Aggie defense test them? I mean, they're not Aggie offense test them. They're not great, but.
Yeah, Kirk Herbstreit said it was the most explosive offense they had faced all season, right? I mean, I'm with you at this point. They haven't faced, I will agree, a prolific offense, but every time they face an offense, they smother that offense. And I think they will face one potentially in the playoff, in the postseason, not Georgia. But in the playoffs, I do think there's a potential for them to face one. But guys, this defense, we got to start accepting it. That it's historically great. Like it's going to be one of the, and you played on some historically great defenses, Brian. So did I. I mean, this defense is in the conversation with any of those and could potentially be better than any of those defenses statistically. I mean, I just think it's hard for us to fathom that because the turnaround was so quick and drastic. We just didn't expect it to be. We expected it to be improved, but now you're talking about the best defense in the country and maybe top 5 all time in Texas football history. That we did not expect.
Well, and I think to add to that, like you look at it, and the defensive line last year was a historically great defensive line. But you lost two of the biggest key pieces to that defensive line. And for them to come back the way they have this year and be just as good, just as dominant, but then you turn the DBs into a total 180 from last year. It speaks volumes about not only the coaching staff, but the character and the camaraderie and the way these guys goes to work each and every day to really, they said it before the game, you see these 5 DBs, they're playing as one. And that's really what you're seeing. And to add to this comment, okay, they've talked about that about Texas all year long, right? They haven't played nobody. They haven't beat nobody. Well, let me bring something up, okay? So we've got Kentucky. We played Kentucky last week. We dominated Kentucky, all right? Kentucky beat Ole Miss. They lost to Georgia by 1, okay? You got Florida. Florida beat Ole Miss. They beat LSU, and they took Tennessee to overtime, okay? You got Vandy, who we beat. They beat Alabama, okay? You got Michigan, who beat Ohio State today. So the narrative of that Texas hasn't played nobody, well, you want to look at the rankings, you want to say they haven't played nobody, fine. But guess what? All those teams that we beat has beat somebody, okay? And guess what? We played A&M tonight, so guess what? We still ain't beat nobody.
Boom! Boom! Love it. That's what I'm talking about.
The end there. I knew you were coming with something. And this went from NP Houston, Brian Robison off the top rope. How about the work our coaching staff did in the portal? This is a particularly relevant because you were talking about the secondary. Makuba, Bill Norton made a nice play on the goal line. Trey Moore, that game-winning or game-finalizing strip sack of sorts out in the open field there. Yes, and I think they're going to be very aggressive in the portal this offseason as well. John Franks, the No Diddy D will carry us anywhere we want to go. And then I've got to ask you all about this. Todd Lacey, I called it, Bobby. The arch package by Sark was needed, and boom, he pulled it out on 4th.
Well done. Good job. Well done. I didn't think he'd do it.
Take the points. A&M just didn't take the points, right? I mean, Elko went down there. Barron Sorrell stoned Amari Daniels. I was thinking, Sark, take the points. Take the points.
Nope.
Yeah, he's going to take 6 of them.
Hell yeah, right. That was great. I was surprised. That was a hell of a tendency breaker because I did not see that coming. Sark usually does not. He says we don't major in the run game. Well, in the quarterback run game, we don't major in the quarterback run game, and that was a nice tendency breaker.
Yeah.
Good job.
It definitely was a tendency breaker. We heard about them working with him. He got some first team reps this week in practice, by the way, guys. Quinn was.
They got him tonight too.
Yeah. Yes, he did. Absolutely. It played a little bit like it. All right. Jaden Chandler, is it just me or on that pick was Wingo pushed? I didn't see anything that would have been described as a pass interference before. Jerry's Jack Links 186.
Whoa!
You know what that means? That's for Trey Weisner, baby.
Yes, sir.
Trey, congratulations to you. Now they were talking about him getting in the cold plunge tub. Get after it, buddy.
Yeah.
You deserve it.
I mean, the last 2 weeks, guys, this guy's got 344 yards in the last 2 weeks, last 2 games. Like, that's crazy, guys. Think about that. Like, who's last time somebody had a 2-game stretch like that at Texas running the football? That's like, that's a Bijan, and that's nice. That's impressive running the rock. That's workhorse. We haven't had a workhorse like that in a while. That's over 6 yards a carry in the last 2 games.
Well, and not only that, Rob, when you put that in perspective, he's got 626 yards rushing on the season. Like,
that's not including tonight,
right? That's not including tonight. So you're probably looking at 800 yards, basically 800 yards.
8 and change.
Yeah. At the beginning of the season, did anybody think that we were going to have a 1,000-yard rusher?
No. Not now.
We were thinking 500 to 750.
No.
With two of them splitting, maybe.
We thought it was going to be a running back by committee type deal, right?
Yeah.
It was going to be a Jaden Blue, Trey Weisner, Jarrett Gibson type situation. And it has become a feature Trey Weisner.
That's true.
I mean, he legitimately has a shot at 1,000 yards this year.
Yeah, he does. Got to finish strong. Got to finish strong. By the way, if anybody happens to have a shot of the tower tonight, I would like one. If somebody has a photo and can send it to us at ontexasfootball@gmail.com. If there are any students around town right now and can take a picture of that for me, I would appreciate it. All right, Chris Davis, about to enjoy some Thanksgiving dessert, finish this gallon jug of margaritas, and honor and enjoy our win, and welcome to the Southeastern Conference championship game. I love the gallon jug of margarita. You just can't, I'm all about that now. Chris Pavola, go around. When was your time of death for Aggie? For me, it was halfway through the third quarter. Man, mine may have been at halftime, and then Quinn resuscitated him, and then Jeff Banks helped him along a little bit. That punt block was clean. I mean, that's to be honest with you guys, those are how you lose games.
Yep.
Agreed.
Those are plays that make you lose games. But I don't think this Texas defense or this Texas offensive line was having any of that tonight. Biggins, Minnesota. I love Texas. I'm from Minnesota. I love OTF, and I love B-Rob. My dad and I were at all those games at the Metrodome. There you go, Brian. Season ticket holders, every sack you had, I looked at my dad and said, that's my boy from UT. There you go,
That's
Brian.
awesome. That's awesome. Appreciate it, Biggins.
Biggins in Minnesota. Hey, Brian, I got to ask this. Did you see anything Texas brought in the pass rush that was interesting tonight from your standpoint? Or just you talked about very early on in this about how they mixed it up. Did you see anything different that they did maybe or just mixing it up?
Man, I think they just mixed it up. I didn't really see anything that really stuck out to me that was that's different. I just think they just played really clean ball. I think the front four guys, when they had a four-man rush, did a really good job of trying to force Marcel Reed into the bigger guys up front, right? Or if they had a three-man rush, it seemed like one guy was designated to kind of be the inside guy to give Marcel Reed the illusion that he had that escape route back outside, and you would have a guy like Anthony Hill or somebody like that would be kind of that sneaky, spy guy that would get to it. So I just thought they did a really good job of keeping one, Texas A&M's offense off kiltered on how they were going to rush, but B, keeping Marcel Reed not being able to really get comfortable with where his best escape route was.
Fair enough. I thought they just did a great job, like you said, understanding him as a runner. He had that one long run, but other than that, he just had nowhere to go. Jonathan Forrester, LFG, always sweet when we beat the Aggies. What are your thoughts on why the last two games we have had rough second halves? If we didn't have a dominant defense, ... I want to say this, okay? They did have a rough second half in certain ways, but really they had 3 long drives in the second half, guys. It wasn't like they had they turned the ball over twice and had a punt block.
Yep.
I mean, they dominated time of possession. It just didn't end in points. So why the last two games rough second halves? Rod or Brian, either one of you guys have an answer for that? Or is it sometimes
I think when you look at the Kentucky game, they made a switch at quarterback, right? And that was a little bit of a change up. Kentucky was able to kind of really move the ball a little bit in the second half, kind of click some or tick some clock off the scoreboard, things like that. So it kind of slows the game down a little bit for your offense. I also think when you get such a lead like that, you have a tendency to get comfortable. You have a tendency to try to take the time off the clock, which makes you kind of I hate to use the word safety up, but that's basically what you're doing. You're trying to just let the clock tick away, to leave less time on the clock for the opposing offense to have the time to score. I think you saw the same thing tonight. I think you had an opportunity as a Texas offense to really and honestly, this should have been a 31-0 ball game. Like, it really should have been, but you had a punt block. You had 2 turnovers inside the 10-yard line. One was a pick six. So it looked worse than what it was. And it goes back to what I said earlier, complementary football, right? When the offense goes downhill like that, it's up to the defense to really pick things up, pick the slack up. And guess what? I understand it doesn't look good. It doesn't make you comfortable, but they're 11-1. And they're 11-1 for a reason, because they put up points. They make people play from behind. The one game that did not happen was Georgia, and that's the one game you lost. Every other game, they have made teams play from behind. And when you have a defense that you can have that luxury of slowing down. Do you want to have that luxury? Do you want to utilize that luxury? Absolutely not. You need to put your foot on the throttle and put the game away. I said it all night tonight. Like, there never really was a A&M's done call for me until about 4 minutes left in the game. Then it was like, okay, A&M's done. But other than that, I mean, you have confidence in your defense to go out there and do that. And I think in a lot of ways it makes you kind of safety up on offense, because you realize you do have that run game, right? You have that run game that can just tick time off the clock, and you've got a defense that isn't just going to let them go down there and score in a minute. Like, it's just, I think a lot of it has to do with that. What do you think, Rod?
I think it's a multitude of things. Potentially, it's not just one thing. Against A&M, it was definitely more your situational football execution kind of let you down. Remember, at the end of the first half, you're at the missed field goal. Then you end up having in the red zone, your 2 turnovers in the red zone in the third quarter. Then you're a block punt. So it was almost just the situation. I mean, those are really particular situations. You practice those situations. You practice field goal situations. You practice red zone specifically, so that you are at your best executing in those critical points, right, of the game. And that to Brian's point, that's what basically turned it from being a blowout, potentially a blowout, to being that. That's why you practice those situations. They're so critical that you can, a game that's as lopsided as this game is, you screw up in those critical areas, those critical moments, and now look what you got, a 17-7 game. When if you watch the game, you go, it seems like Texas dominated this game. How the hell is it a 17-7 game? Well, red zone and field goals and then punt. I mean, those are like, when you're in practice, when you break down practice, and Brian can break it down for you better than me, literally there's a certain amount of periods that you are allowed per practice, and those 3 areas I just mentioned, that's like a third of the practice right there. Red zone, and then those critical areas in special teams right there. So that's why it seems lopsided. That's why coach is like, guys, in these critical moments, we have to be better, because that's the difference between us blowing out an opponent and it becoming a dog fight in the fourth quarter.
And I'll say this too. Okay, so it looked really bad tonight because those things happened back to back to back to back. Like you ended the first half with a missed field goal. You march right down the field, and then you have the turnover for pick six. You march right down the field. You have the fumble. You kind of get to midpoint, and then you have the block punt. So it just looks extremely bad when it happens back to back. But I kind of relate it to. It's funny. I was having a conversation this past week about the Kansas City Chiefs, and they're like, they're terrible. No, they're 11-1. And they're, but they're getting lucky. Well, guess what? You make your luck in a lot of those situations. Like, you wonder why they have a blocked field goal. You wonder now, granted, there's some lucky things that happen, but what's the old saying, Rod? I'd rather be lucky than good any day of the week, right? But you look at Kansas City, and a lot of those situations, the blocked field goals, the different things that have happened to them this year, those are situations that you practice.
Yes.
Okay, hey, guys, how many times have you been on the field, Rod, and you're like, why are we practicing a field goal block with 4 seconds left?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it pops up in the game, and you run that field goal block that you've been practicing all year long for this one time, and you block a field goal, right? That's what separates the really good teams. And when I mean really good, I mean national championship contending teams, Super Bowl championship contending teams from the guys who just make the playoffs. That's what separates, is they practice all the critical situations, all the different elements of a game that can come up. The little things are what they do really good.
I got to say this. It felt like third quarter, it was self-inflicted almost. I know the Aggies made plays, right? But it kind of felt self-inflicted. The two turnovers. Maybe I've seen the game. There's something about that third quarter where Texas, you want them to just put them away, right? Mm-hmm. They put Florida away, by the way, in the third quarter 3 weeks ago. So I hear you. We'll see if there's sometimes it's just football too. James Littleton with 812 yards rushing on the season, and with the SEC championship and a minimum one playoff game, Weisner may keep Sark's 1,000 yard rusher streak alive. Yeah, we definitely just talked about that, James, and agree with you 100%. Eric Mitchell, this one is just for the win. Love the way the team rallied around each other time and time again. They never felt rattled, not once, regardless of circumstance, positive or negative. I want to talk about the 3 fourth down stops real quick, because we have not mentioned that. Before we do that, and Eric, thank you for the super chat. I do need to say thank you to our sponsor before I ask you all about those 3 fourth down stops. Flight is the next generation of light beer with only 95 calories. It's an upscale light beer designed to elevate the customer experience with more taste and just 4.2 carbs. Flight is an easy-to-drink beer with a crisp taste. Try Flight from Yingling. Guys, those fourth down stops.
Unbelievable.
The first one, Baron Sorrell literally didn't let the running back had an angle on him, and it looked like he just caught him and said, no, you're not going any further. I thought it was an amazing play. Then they got Marcel Reed short of the first down on a scramble type, and then the play by Ethan Burke what a bounce back defense, by the way, guys. After the punt block, A&M runs a really nice screen to the tight end, or a late route to the tight end over the middle. Really good stuff, right? What were y'all's thoughts on the defense and the fourth down stops in particular? Just awesome. I mean, what else you want to say?
Well, I think for me, you go back to first down. They were able to create negative plays on a lot of those on first down that really turned it from it really turned it to like a 2nd and 12, 2nd 13, 15 type situation where now they had to make those up in 2 downs, what pushed them in a situation to have to go for it on fourth down. You can also look at the third down plays that they were able to make, stuffing the run, doing different things to put them in a situation where, like, hey, yeah, we only got 2 yards, but heck, we only had 2 yards last play and couldn't get it. So now there's a lot of doubt in your mind of whether you can really get that or not. You have the running quarterback issue that, other than one play that I can really think of, Marcel Reed didn't hurt them with the quarterback run. So when you have Texas A&M that are coming up on fourth down and they're like, what do we run to get 2 yards? I don't know. Let's throw a dart at this play and try to run it and see what happens. But in my opinion, it started with the guys up front. They dominated the line of scrimmage. And when you can dominate the line of scrimmage and really force an offensive line a yard or 2 into the backfield, or even get penetration where you're making a running back have to cut it away from the hole that it's designed to go to, it's going to be hard to get first downs against anybody you play like that.
Yep. And the worst defense is the weakest part of the defense, by the way. That's that what y'all are witnessing. That's the weakest element of the defense is their rush defense. So good luck with that. Good luck trying to exploit the rush defense.
Matt, our producer, guys, has some Steve Sarkisian comments post game. Matt, if you don't mind putting that up for everybody to see it.
Hey, first of all, I'm just very proud of our team. They've been preparing week after week after week, and they continue to show up, and we continue to find ways to improve and get better. And I thought just defensively tonight was an absolute dominant performance. A lot of guys had great games. Burton, fantastic game. I think he had a couple sacks, the fumble recovery, great play by Trey getting the sack fumble right there, the cause fumble, the interception early in the game, a couple critical fourth down stops. They get the ball on the 6-inch line and to make a couple plays the way that they did was just an awesome performance from a defensive perspective. And offensively, a month ago we challenged our guys about the running game, and we knew we were going to need it to get to where we wanted to get to. And boy, have they responded. And Trey Weisner has just been an absolute warrior for us. I thought Quinn had a really gutty performance. He was not 100%, but utilized his legs when he could to extend drives. Made a couple great throws. We had a little bit of bad luck in the red area, the tip ball that they run back for a touchdown. It was like, are you serious? And then the fumble and a block punt, but outside of that, I really thought we controlled the game and quite frankly dominated the game. And that's kind of how we played all year. We just get in control of games, and this game was really no different than that. So them handling the environment was something that was critical to us, and having poise and composure in this arena and owning the arena, and I thought we did that. And so all in all, it's a great way to end kind of the regular season. This is where we wanted to be. We knew when we had the slip up earlier in the season that we'd have to win out to get back to a championship game, and we've earned that right, and we're playing a heck of an opponent. As we all know, Georgia's a great team, and we're going to have to prepare really well to try to come out on top.
That's good stuff there from Texas head football coach, now 11-1 and headed to the SEC championship game where they will take on Georgia next Saturday. He said they dominated. Mike Elko agrees. Texas, quote unquote, annihilated our game plan, or part of our team on Saturday night. That's the A&M coach saying that. I'm going to get to a couple of super chats here real quick, guys. This from Lindy B. Quinn Travion is a badass. It's okay to call him just Trey, by the way. He doesn't mind, is what I'm told.
Today he deserves to be.
Lindy
Today,
B.
no, 186. He deserves to be called Contravian just for one day because of the 186.
Hey,
Travion.
We'll say as many syllables as you want us to. We put 186 up on the Aggies, man. Way to go, buddy. Brett Mayfield had said that he was going to give us $1 for every point differential in this game. 10 times the difference, man of my word. Hook 'em, 1939. There you go. Well Trace Little, these goobers even added extra speakers. Aggie, not SEC ready. Sark apparently got a little upset with that during the game, according to the broadcast. Derek Best, shout out to Trevor Gooseby. Replaced Banks seamlessly. Brian, how hard? He didn't just play any position. He played left tackle. I mean, how hard is that for a guy to go out and do that? I mean, he hadn't played. I mean, he's played some this year, but it's all been mop-up duty. Banks has been healthy the entire year. How hard is that?
Well, I'll ask your question with another question. How often do you see a replacement guy go to right tackle and they move the right tackle to left tackle? And they didn't even blink an eye at it. They threw him right in there. So obviously there's some confidence in him and what his abilities are, because when you're talking about replacing a guy like Kelvin Banks, who is regarded as the best offensive lineman in the draft coming up, that's hard shoes to fill. And dude, you didn't it didn't even look like they skipped a beat. And I'm not saying, hey, we don't need Kelvin Banks, but I'm just saying, to have that luxury to have a guy come in, it goes back to what I said. This team has a lot more depth than people realize.
Yes, they do. Absolutely. Lindy B also says, Gooseby highlighted that incredible UT line depth. Exactly what B-Rob was just talking. Thanks for the super chat, Lindy B. Antonio Washington, thank you as well. Why did we, on 2 consecutive drives, try to throw the ball on both third and shorts inside the 10 instead of finishing the drive with our OL, who won the line of scrimmage all night?
Yeah.
It's a fair question. What do you think, Rod?
Yeah, I actually asked it on the live stream too. I think ultimately just Sark, he's a little stubborn at times too, where he doesn't want to just be a one-dimensional offense I do think at times he still just wants to add he still wants to strike balance. And I always say Sark needs to be at times an extremist with the offense. When something's working, just pound them into submission with that, whatever that concept is. And I think he's learning more of that. You're right. I agree with you 100%. Definitely should just ran the football. But Sark, it's the guy that wants to infuse his creativity into the offense. The run game, I think he does use his creativity, but there's less of it involved in the pass games. I just think that he's a pass first guy. So he ultimately always wants to pass, but we know what this team is. He does too. He does.
This one from AJJ. The defense was playing for Jake Ellinger tonight. I'm not sure if y'all saw this, but there was a really nasty sign
I saw
up there that brought up his name. Obviously, Jake, Sam's brother, passed away. And I will say this. He played at Westlake, and Michael Taff made an interception tonight, and Ethan Burke made a 4th and goal stop.
There you go.
Products. So let's hear it for those guys standing up. This one, Trace Ray, thank you so much for the super chat. Moving on to Kabir Hussein. Can Rod grade the secondary play, please?
Oh, wow.
You got it. You got a timing.
Hard not to give everybody an A. I mean,
all they gave up was the first series.
Yep, I was about to say they gave that first series couple of plays. That's it. So I give them an A. I'll give the defense. I give everybody on the defense pretty much an A. When you get a shutout defensively, how can you not get A's all around?
Yeah, absolutely. I thought Makuba played well. Taff got his hand on another ball too.
Yeah, oh no, Taff Daddy's balling out. I see why Taff Daddy's like, you know what? I ain't staying another year. I'm going to league. I'm out. My stock is high. Herb Street's pumping me up. I'm going to league, man.
I love it. Forrest Eldridge. Trevor Gooseby needs a game ball. Forrest Eldridge says Brian gave the entire offensive line a game ball. Gooseby certainly part of that and deserves it very much for stepping in the way he did. Osas the Destroyer going to take a hiatus from all social media till signing day to avoid the Myron Charles decommitment. I don't know. I don't even know if Myron Charles actually decommitted today. I do know that he was supposed to be at the Florida game. He's a big defensive lineman out of Port Charlotte, Florida. Rod, I know Rod knows that, but Brian as well. Justin Hobbs, Hookham from Arkansas, happy for the win. But is there concern with our field goal kicking?
And punting and kicking. You know what? Isn't that crazy? Those are like your big issues. Punting and kicking. Who thought? I mean, we got first world problems.
Oh boy, Peter DeGreat, welcome. Walk in your trap, take over your trap. 12th man who? Thanks, Peter. Nothing wrong with talking a little smack tonight, by the way, Longhorn fans, as long as you do it respectfully. Harry Hamilton. Quinn giving his all for this game. Y'all think we got Georgia next week, and will we see them a third time? Also, this game's for Jake Ellinger. No, so glad Taft Daddy came up big. Guys, what did y'all think about Texas going against Georgia? We talked a little bit about them. Brian, you mentioned you thought we should see more of the second half game of Texas-Georgia in the rematch than we did that game in Austin. Why is that? Is that just because familiarity? Why do you see that going that direction this next go?
Well, I think it goes back to what I said earlier about the run game. I think Texas has found their identity, which is we can ground and pound. I think Georgia kind of got away from that a little bit when they played us at home. I think they want to run the ball. They were kind of in a situation where they were slinging it around with Carson Beck a little bit, and they were able to run the ball because of the situations that they were put in. But I don't think they really got to run the ball the way they want to. You look at Georgia the last few games, and they've tried to establish more of a running game. I could see this game being a very low-scoring defensive ball game strictly because you've got two teams with a physical identity. Like they want to out-physical each other. And so I think this is going to be more of a second-half ball game. I think the offensive line has made their adjustments. I think they have found their identity not only in the run game, but the passing game as well. And I just think this is going to be a situation where it's going to be who can impose their will on the other team. And that's what Georgia has been very good at over the past few years. And it's up to Texas now to be able to match that intensity, match that physicality, or overtake Georgia in that department.
Fair enough. All right, got some more super chats. We're going to keep going here if you don't mind. UT Tyler guy, I'm overjoyed. We dominated, not necessarily on the scoreboard, but a W is a W. Y'all thought does Quinn or does Sark keep the arch package moving forward? My only question is why not?
Yeah, you got to keep it now. Yeah, got to. Yep.
All right.
I see that even being expanded even more as it goes on. I mean, I can see, you look at it, they just ran the ball with them tonight. We know Arch can throw. So, I mean, at what point do you throw them out there? And when defenses think we're just going to blitz them and they just toss it over the middle, might see the old Tim Tebow jump pass come out. I mean, I don't know. Let's see what happens.
Nice.
It worked for Chris Leak and Tim Tebow, right? To win a national. It absolutely did. I will say this, on that play that Sark scored the touchdown, did y'all see they didn't even run with they moved the tight end
in the back?
It was an unbalanced line.
Yeah.
Y'all notice that? Okay.
Yeah.
And that, I think that kept A&M short-sighted on the backside, on the boundary side. Is that what you saw, you guys?
I saw that, and I saw the fact that they honestly didn't even respect it. You had two defenders out there, and I don't know if they miscommunicated or what, but two defenders sucked in. And Juan Davis wraps around the edge there and had nobody to block. I mean, so I don't know what the deal was there. I don't know if that was some miscommunication or they were selling out just thinking Arch wasn't going to pull it, or I don't know what the deal was there.
Yep, he's been used some unbalanced. He used some against Kentucky. And last year he used it a ton actually against some of the 3 high teams in the Big 12 when he wanted to run the football and basically, like you said, get them to over allocate resources to one side of the football.
Here's a question for you. Does Texas A&M after tonight's game decide to go back to the Big 12?
Wow, man!
Brian has no problem. He's got no problem coming.
I think that's 4 of them. He's got
off top rope, man.
That's like his 4th shot at A&M tonight.
He's got no problem with it.
I've got 11 years of pent up energy with these guys.
Anthony, here's the Bobby's mayo and corn dog fun. Q Snipes, Texas fan living in Ohio today was effing awesome. Thank you so much, Q Snipes. Thank you, Hunter Sedgwick, for yours. I don't see a question attached there. Jaden Chandler, Trey Zunn got it handed to him. Meet Anthony Hill. What y'all think of the linebacker play tonight for Texas? We haven't even talked about Lianga Lafau and Anthony Hill. Both of those guys, I thought, did a nice job. Basically, I mean, A&M had no run game tonight. Texas shut it down, right?
Yep. And like Brian said, you got one big scramble from Marcel Reed, that big one. That was actually the second 20-plus yard run that Texas has allowed all season was that scramble by Marcel Reed. But other than that, I mean, everything was sporadic. Nothing. There was no consistent concept that worked for the Aggies all game long. They couldn't rely on any one thing.
I think the thing, too, is you look at it, and Marcel Reed was not outrunning Anthony Hill. Like, it wasn't going to happen. And Lafau had a very quiet, great game. Like, I forget the stat line, but I think he had like 6 tackles. I think he led the defensive tackles, had a forced fumble in a very critical situation. Very quietly had a really good game.
Hey, look at this, guys. Look at this picture. Put that back up if you don't mind, Matt. That picture of the tower. I want to bask in that. Thank you, Edward Hodgek, for sending that over to us post game.
Beautiful.
Look at that. He said that's from his balcony. I think he's a doctoral student there at the university right now, watching us here live. All right, Quinn played a fantastic game. Damon Graham says, except for the fumble, this team is imposing its will. And I think Sark and the team are finding their identity. I agree about imposing their will. That's what I thought Texas was doing in the third quarter, and they just didn't capitalize with points, guys. Hunter Sedgwick, this was the one. His prediction, Texas beats Georgia 27-20 and becomes SEC champs. I got to love it. We've seen this act before. Texas was the last Southwest Conference champ and the first Big 12 champ. Okay.
Wow.
Texas has a chance to be the last Big 12 champ for them and the first SEC champ in their first year.
Love it.
It's something about the University of Texas, guys. I want to give some love. This is from Michael Williams. Thank you for the super chat. I want to give some love to Pete Kwiatkowski. Many fans wanted to dump him for Gary Patterson. So glad PK is our defensive coordinator. Hey, you know what? Pete Kwiatkowski is one of those guys that doesn't ask for a lot of PR. He doesn't, he's not out there trying to go get a head coaching job. He just likes to coach. And he's 4 years into it right now at Texas. And I think it's safe to say he's built something a little special. Really has. Rod, you have something on that?
Yeah, I mean, I agree 100%. I think and what I love about him is his willingness to still be a student of the game, even though he's at this point considered a chess master. He was before he even came to Texas. He was that respected. But when guys like Gary Patterson came in to the fold, and the guy now, Johnny Nansen as well, you can watch his defense evolve real time, and you can see him being open to conceptual evolution on the defensive side of the ball. And I think it's made him a better defensive coordinator and play caller. And I love that now he's on the sideline. I mean, that's something that's underrated. Maybe he was in the booth last year and thought he wanted to be more on the sideline. Usually that means, you want to be able to connect to the players more, right? I want to be able to talk to the players. I want to be able to look them in their eyes about certain situations and see where they are. And I think it's paid off huge. So I love how open he is. He's not stubborn. He's open to evolving and changing and continuing to grow as a defensive coordinator.
And I think to add to that, Rod, I think there's something to be said about understanding what you have as players and not being stubborn in the system that you want to run, but rather utilizing the players that you have to run the system that you need to run. I think there is something to be said about that. And we've watched him over the years where there's been questions about this group or that group. And for whatever reason, those groups tend to be the groups that stand up and be the standout of the defense. You look at it, it was the defensive line that was a question, and they became the strength. It was the linebackers that became the question when Demo left, and they became the strength. The DBs were the question going into this season, and they have become a strength. There's got to be some, I don't know why. I don't know the rhyme or reason. I'd love to talk to him about it, but for whatever reason, he has found a way to make the weakness from the year before or from whatever time period to become one of the strengths the following year.
All right. I want to say this. We've talked also about Johnny Nansen and his impact on this defense. I want to add another guy that everybody needs to know about, and I've mentioned this before. His name's Scotty Hazelton.
Yeah.
A year ago or a couple of years ago, for the last couple of years, he's been the defensive coordinator at Michigan State. Sark brought him on just to coach Nichols. How good is Texas? That may have been one of the more key hires to connect that defense in the back half this year. I mean, because they have not blown many coverage. I mean, they're just PK is doing it, but a lot of guys with him as well. But I definitely, I think just PK's an old ball coach, man.
Yeah, agreed.
He just wants to coach ball, Pad G, Sark plus prep time is terrifying. Not for us. Maybe for somebody else, Pad G. Too broke to pay attention. His mama named him Quintravian. Called him Quintravian.
Well done. There you go. Great reference.
Thanks, Too Broke.
Beautiful. Good job.
Super chat.
Shoot, after tonight's game, you might as well just call him Mr. Weisner.
There you go. Hey, there you go. That's acceptable. Also acceptable. Mr. Weisner. Hell yeah. You damn right.
I love it. Andrew Thomas, will Texas bring the arch package to Atlanta? Why not, is what we answered earlier. And then Iprico had this. Why wouldn't Sark let Manning throw the ball in one of those packages? Became too predictable for the Aggie defense. It did get thwarted the last time they ran it. But, Brian, that's kind of what you said. I mean, it's not like the guy can't throw. That's what Mannings do. They don't typically run. So they'll come up with something out of that'll be interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Ethan McCulley, Michael Fasusi, the big offensive lineman, out of Louisville. Saw that whole game. Do you think he leaves OU, or is this game impactful at all for his recruiting? I think it's too soon to know that for sure. So I think it's just too soon. We'll see what he says in the next day or so. RB, thank you for your super chat. Something going on with Isaiah Bond, and it's not his ankle. It's like he's not on the same page with Quinn on multiple passes. Sark was visibly frustrated with him tonight. So was Quinn at one time. Yeah. Rod, you're a DB guy. What did Bond not do that it looked like Quinn wanted to do on that one route where
third down,
a little longer past the sticks, maybe?
I think it was supposed to be like a sight adjustment. I said, I'm just theorizing based on the leverage of the DB. The DB was inside leverage, and his eyes on the quarterback. So he had zone eyes, zone posture with inside leverage, hips actually open to the quarterback. So, if you're the wide receiver Bond there, it seemed like, and when Quinn was throwing, it was the out. He was throwing it out right at the sticks. And it seemed like that was the sight adjustment that it was supposed to be. If that DB had that kind of leverage, inside leverage, zone eyes on the quarterback, hips open to the quarterback. Oh, simple sight adjustment. We're just going to run the out right at the sticks. That's where he threw the football. And for some reason, Bond ran vertical and wanted to test the DB. So I'm assuming that he was supposed to be running the out there at the sticks, and that was the frustration. It's like, hey man, did you not see the leverage of the DB? Why are you challenging him vertical when his hips are turned and all of his posture and even his eyes are saying he's covering the vertical, looking at the quarterback in that regard. So that's my best.
I will also say this. I don't know if you guys caught it, but at one point you could visibly see a knee sleeve on him as well. So I don't know if he's got something, maybe some overcompensation issues on that leg or something like that, but you could visibly see a knee sleeve on him as well.
I did not notice that. Thanks for mentioning that, Brian. All right, Freelance Society. Hookham was at the 2004 Big 12 championship game. Man, was that 70-3? This defense reminds me of that team. Brian was pretty good on that team. Rod,
great on it.
Y'all were pretty good. Let's just put it that way. This defense, though, I think this game in College Station, it'll be the offensive line that we remember. Quinn Ewers playing through some injury, maybe. Trey Weisner, yeoman-like performance.
Quinn Travion.
And that defensive, this is the defense as a whole. Yes, the defensive line whipped them. But, man, they played together as bro. I mean, I just felt like they were there for it. You know what I mean? Agreed. Like they were very present all night long and I don't think they ever let their guard down except for maybe the first drive. Brian?
I will tell you something else. There was some opportunities for things to get heated in that ball game. And as Texas fans, you should be very, very proud that them dudes kept their composure. I mean, you even Colin at the end, he had every right to get heated, but his teammates rallied. They pulled him away. They said, "Hey, we're not doing that." Like, hey, kudos.
That's a good point.
All right, last super chat of the night, guys. Naaman Roberts, despite Ewers' ups and downs, our team is good enough to beat anybody. Hook 'em. Sark is a great builder of teams. Done a wonderful job with this one. And the last two, really. I mean, I've covered Texas for 30 years. It's kind of sad that it's been that long, but in some ways, but I'm happy with where Texas is at now. Look, I did not see this coming from Steve Sarkisian. Just didn't. I mean, he inherited a roster that was it's not like Texas had bad players. They just didn't have a true roster. It wasn't a cohesive unit. It didn't make sense. You know, they didn't have any speed at certain positions. And that first year looked ugly. I mean, bottom line, it looked really, really ugly. And so, yeah, we've seen some ups and downs, just like Quinn has had, but we've seen it from Sark as well. But I think, and I'd like y'all's thoughts before we get going here tonight, is he never took his eye off the ball, in my opinion, about what he wanted this team to become, the vision he had for it. Every coach, of course, has a vision for their team few actually can connect on that vision. But that's where we're looking at right now. Texas going back to the college football playoffs for the second straight year. Y'all have any thoughts on this and what Sark's done, especially these last 2 years?
I also think it's I think Sark has done a great job of being progressive and evolving with the times in terms of changing landscape, because it's tough. The changing landscape of college sports as we know it has also shifted dramatically while the man has been here. In addition to what you've brought up, him trusting his vision and having a vision as to how he wanted to construct the roster and what he wanted the culture to be. He had to deal with, COVID and then, NIL and the transfer portal. And now you're going to have, revenue sharing and all that. So there's a lot of changes, but he's been really progressive. Like, he hasn't been stubborn necessarily about, hey, my vision, it has to look a certain way. I think there are certain principles that he's going to be, steadfast about and be consistent about. But the rest of it has been pretty malleable and with the changing landscape of college sports. And I'll give him a lot of credit for that, man, because I think that's hurting a lot of programs, some coaches who have been stubborn and stuck in their way. That is not Sark.
Brian, what do you think?
I'll say this, man. I thought Sark could be the guy. I think my major concern was if Texas would give him enough time. I did not expect things to happen this fast. And I'll tell you what the other thing is, and hats off to Sark for this. I really thought the move to the SEC would be a struggle for a couple of years. Like, I thought eventually, hey, they're going to steal recruits. They're going to get the big time recruits in the state of Texas and start kind of running over to here to Texas versus Texas A&M and the other schools. But it was going to take time. Sark, going back to what you said about Sark's vision, Sark had a vision not only of where he wanted his football team, but also the vision to turn it into a Big 12 built football team to an SEC built football team. And to do what he has done, I mean, you look at the transformation of the offensive line when it comes to size and ability in the last 3 years, from the year one when he got here to you could really say last year, but especially this year going into the SEC. He built an SEC football team through the Big 12. And that was his vision. He knew the direction that Texas was heading. So how do you keep that going? I also think an extra layer to this is Sark has done what I think a lot of people have struggled with, and Rod said it, with the landscape of college football, but even more so, the balance of developing kids out of high school and getting guys out of the transfer portal. He has utilized both to the utmost ability that he can, and it has really done big dividends for this football team. You look at the wide receiver group, for example, you've got a mix of guys that have been big-time names coming through the transfer portal, but are also freshmen coming out of high school that are guys that you can develop. You look at the running back room, these guys have all been guys that have come through high school and have been highly recruited guys that he can develop. So I think you look at defense, you've got a great mix of guys that are transfer portal guys, but also guys that, are coming through high school. There's not a lot of colleges in the college landscape that has been able to do well on both sides of the coin there. And I think Sark has been able to do that.
All right, guys, going to finish with this. Michael Taff basically had this to say about his final moments and that what happened, I guess, with that pregame sign. Michael Taff here from CJ Vogel got this in the postgame.
Yeah, well, guys like Sam Ellinger first, just guys that were all about the University of Texas, who would thrive in these type of environments, these type of rivalry games. I just thought about guys like that because, who knows what they would have done to get this opportunity, and we got this opportunity. So we got to, praise them for them paving the way. Now, to discuss about Jake Ellinger, first I want to say I feel sorry for the person that posted that sign. I feel sorry for him because I don't know what he's going through, how much he's dealing with in life to think that was a good idea, to think that was okay, to think that was appropriate for anything, no matter what rivalry, to think that was okay. So I just wanted to make that clear. Second thing is, just so everybody knows out there, Jake Ellinger didn't die because he overdosed. He got drugged. He got poisoned. He didn't die because he overdosed. So I want everybody to know that he was poisoned, and he loved this team so much, and I wish that he could be part of this, but he was drugged. He was not overdosed. He was not a drug addict by any means. So I want to make that very clear.
I tell you what, that's a guy talking about his friend, man. That's pretty heart-wrenching, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Tough stuff, but good stuff there from Michael Taff, in my opinion. Guys, I tell you what, the regular season is now complete. Texas is 11-1, and we're going to the SEC championship game next week, guys. I got a little trip to Atlanta in my future, not one that I had necessarily planned, but we will be with the Atlanta Texas X's, I hope, on Friday evening or afternoon before the game. If you're in town and going to Atlanta, make sure you stop by and hang out with us. We've got rapid reactions tomorrow morning with myself and CJ Vogel and Jerry Hamilton. We've got grades for the offense and the defense. And we've also got the rewatch, the second watch with Rod Babers, as well as tomorrow night's live stream. We'll have you all covered. Brian Robison, thank you so much. Rod Babers, thank you so much. Thank you also to Matt Hutchison. And also thank you to Flight, the next generation of light beer, our sponsor. With only 95 calories, it's an upscale light beer designed to elevate the customer experience with more taste and just 4.2 carbs. Flight is an easy-to-drink beer with a crisp taste. Try Flight from Yingling. Thanks to the fine folks at Flight and our friends at Faust Distributing. This concludes the week. I almost thought Brian Robison may have said that.
Wow.
On to the Bulldogs. May we give the Bulldogs the horn again. This time in Atlanta.
Watch out, Ugga.
Yeah, watch out, Ugga, instead of in Atlanta instead of in New Orleans this time. All right, for Brian Robison, Matt Hutchison, our producer, as well as Rod Babers, I'm Bobby Burton. This has been the On Texas Football postgame, 17-7. Texas Longhorns 11-1 and headed to the SEC championship game.
Okay.